Hi, welcome to Media Spectrum, where stories still matter. Today we're going to be reviewing Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. Now, this is a movie that I was really excited to see. I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan. He has made a number of movies that I really love, like Boogie Nights, Magnolia, The Master, and even movies that I don't necessarily love as much, but still appreciate, like Punch Drunk Love. But something I've noticed consistently with almost all of his movies, other than Boogie Nights, is that I kind of need to see them twice to really understand them and grasp them and appreciate them. Maybe I'm just dumb, but I think there's something very complicated about the way Paul Thomas Anderson chooses to tell stories. And I feel like so often the actual plot of his movies, as complicated or straightforward as they are almost totally secondary to the actual story. I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson tells stories on a more thematic level, on a more allegorical level, even at times. And so it usually takes me a couple watches to really get what he's going for. And this was no different. The first time I saw this movie, I appreciated it, but I didn't really get it. I I could see that there was lots of political commentary going on. I could see lots of little messages and pieces, but they didn't really seem to fit together. It felt like there was no there. I couldn't figure out what it was actually about. But then I took some time to kind of reflect on it. Took some time to see what other people were saying about it, both positive and negative. I saw reviews that hated this movie. I saw reviews that loved this movie. And I feel like I've landed kind of in between it where I can appreciate it. And I appreciated it a lot more on my second viewing for sure. Although it's not one of my favorite of Anderson's. But I think the best way to view this movie is basically as an allegory about Paul Thomas Anderson's own political journey. Which I could be off since I don't know the man personally, but that's just the interpretation that feels the most accurate from what I do know, from what I've seen others say about this movie. So, first off, one of the things that just totally slipped my mind while I was watching this movie the first time was the fact that in real life, Paul Thomas Anderson himself is married to a black woman, Maya Rudolph, and he has a black daughter with her. And so once you know that information, it really makes it impossible to not see Leo's character as something of an allegory for Paul Thomas Anderson himself. The other element that I couldn't really figure out what he was saying and took me a while to arrive at some conclusion about was the character of Perfidia Beverly Hills. Hell of a character name. She is an incredibly complex character for as relatively brief as her time in the movie is, and it's very easy to kind of misunderstand her, I think. I've seen some reviews suggest that this movie hates black women and use her as an example for that. I've also seen reviews suggest that this movie hates revolutionaries, and I also don't think that's really accurate. I think that what she is a false revolutionary. I think she is at her heart a thrill seeker above and beyond all else. And she is someone who says a lot of really good things, who's very charismatic, who can inspire people, who is magnetic and seductive, frankly. But when it comes to the really crucial moments, she kind of betrays herself. Her actions don't necessarily line up with what she says. She's one of those types of people. And frankly, I think maybe the best way to view her is as kind of a symbol almost of Obama. Or maybe not necessarily Obama himself, but the radical hope that he represented. Once I started viewing the movie that way, everything else clicked and made sense from there. So that's kind of the way I view her. And when you think about Paul Thomas Anderson, just by his age, by the fact that from his movies and this movie especially, I'm pretty sure he is leftist leaning. Like a lot of people, he is someone who I think was really enamored with Obama and the sort of hope that he ran on and campaigned for, and was then very disillusioned when Obama had his qualities for sure, but also did not solve all these problems that we were hoping he was going to solve, you know? And then to get back to the criticism about whether or not this movie hates black women, again, once you account for the fact that the director of this film and writer of this screenplay is literally married to a black woman and has a black child with her, I just have a hard time accepting that. I don't think this letter is Paul Thomas Anderson announcing to the world that he hates his wife and family. I think you could argue the movie possibly fetishizes black women, and that's, you know, potentially problematic in its own way. That's a conversation we can have, especially when you consider the character of, I can't believe I'm about to say these words on the internet, the character of Jungle Pussy. Yeah, there is a character in this movie named Jungle Pussy. Now, in PTA's defense, the actress who plays this character is also a rapper in real life, and her real life rap name is Jungle Pussy. That is her own chosen, self-appointed name that she performs under. And so Paul Thomas Anderson, in naming the character literally after her, basically gave her a ton of free publicity. So, on the one hand, good guy Anderson. On the other hand, my brother in Christ, in the year of our Lord 2025, you named a black woman in your script Jungle Pussy. That's a choice, all right. That is certainly a choice. And so the fact that I can kind of understand where some of those arguments about the movie hating black women can come from, yeah, there is something problematic here. Like I said, I really don't think he hates black women, but I can understand there being critiques about there being something kind of problematic about the way he portrays black women in this movie in general. And then I also mentioned there's the critique that some people feel this movie seems to hate revolutionaries. And again, I don't think that's the case. I think this movie hates fake revolutionaries. I think if you look back at history, you don't have to look that long to start seeing people like Perfidia Beverly Hills who talk a big talk but don't really live up to it. And furthermore, revolution is a really good idea, but what comes after it is something that I think is pretty necessary. But if it's not well organized, if it's not intelligent, if it's not considering what's going to actually come next if they are successful, these things lead to problems. There are many real life cases of a righteous revolution turning over a dictatorship only to lead to direct chaos or just some other form of dictatorship. And I think that's kind of what Paul Thomas Anderson is getting at with this character particularly. I think one of the most telling things is near the end of the first segment of the movie, which is basically like a small short film in and of itself that gives us the whole relationship between, I can't even remember the character's name, but between Leo and Beverly, is that once she gets pregnant, nothing about her behavior changes, whereas Leo goes into much more of a protective father mode, and he kind of keeps waiting for her to care about her daughter and to start prioritizing the family, and she never does. But yeah, this is getting into something that I think goes more complicated than simply liberal versus conservative at that point. It is just showing how people's true selves will start coming out as life changes and as new pressures start coming on. I mean, as hard of hearts, I don't think Leo even really cares about the revolution. He's pretty clearly in it just for the women, like openly right from the beginning. And then once shit gets real, he doesn't really care. He just wants to raise his family. Whereas Beverly, she's in it, but she's in it for, I think, the wrong reasons. And the fact that, well, we see her do what she does. You know, I'm trying to keep the spoiler free, but we see what she does. So I think one of the really complex things about this movie relatively these days is that while this movie is unquestionably from a leftist perspective, it is still critical of the left. Because, I mean, the right in this movie are pure evil. The right in this movie are authoritarian, white supremacist, nothing redeeming about them. But they are well organized and they are effective. Whereas the left in this movie is completely scattered. when he tries to reunite with this original revolutionary group, he can barely even communicate with them because he can't remember all these code words. If you don't use the precise right language, they refuse to even talk with you. And as someone who lived in Portland, Oregon during the 2015-2016 election, oh, there is a painfully accurate critique in there for sure. The only really effective resistance we see is the group led by Del Toro. I love the way he refers to it as like a Harriet Tubman Latino underground, Hispanic underground railroad, something like that. Where he's not trying to fight, he's not trying to topple any systems, he's just trying to protect people. And I think there's definitely something to be said for that being more effective in this movie than virtually anything else we see. And finally, I'll just say the acting is great all around. Leo, I mean, he's Leo. Of course, he's great. And I'm filming this a little before the Oscars. And who knows, he might just win an Oscar for pretending to care about a woman with a fully developed prefrontal cortex. So good on him. Sean Penn will win for this movie. I would be flabbergasted if he didn't win. Even if you have any critiques about how his character is written, the performance he gives is incredible. Just the little jaw twitches he gives. I kind of hate that his character is named Lockjaw. That just seems so over the top, but whatever. He's amazing as that character. Del Toro is probably my personal favorite. I love how he manages to just be this totally zen, calm source of just focus in this ongoing storm of chaos. You know, gentle waves, gentle waves, gentle waves, gentle waves. He's just a vibe in this movie. And then the female performers, of course, are great. Tiana Taylor is highly impactful as Beverly. She makes that character so memorable, so important. She really does the best she has with the screen time she has. She makes that character stand out and be so memorable, so good on her. And then Chase Infinity as the daughter, who is also fantastic in the character she has. And in some ways, I almost wish the movie was more focused on her because she seems to have the most actual character arc and character development in this movie. But I understand that's not the main focus. I understand why she's more of a supporting character. But I mean, think about this. I'm fairly certain this is her first movie role, or at least like one of her very first big ones. And she's here keeping her own against Leo DiCaprio and Sean Penn. I'm pretty sure she got an Oscar nomination for this, and she may well win it. So, hell of a way to start off her career. I'm sure we will see her and more. Okay, now I am going to get a little more into spoilers for a couple points. So, again, everything I was saying about Beverly earlier, the fact that she literally betrays everyone when she's caught, the fact that she kind of goes crazy violent during that shooting spree after the argument with Leo about their family, when it doesn't seem like that's necessary to kill that guy, and then everything cracks down and she betrays her entire group and gets nearly all of them either killed or arrested, and then she just fucks off, and we never see from her, we never hear from her. We just get this one letter at the end, which it's a nice letter to her daughter, but how can we trust the sincerity of any of it? But yeah, she's, I think, honestly, kind of a terrible person. I think there's an argument to me that she's the truest villain of this story. Then again, the fact that Sean Penn effectively rapes her and blackmails her. Like I said, she's a very, very morally complex character, for sure. And honestly, when I think about it that way, I almost kind of can't blame her for fucking off the way she does. But still, like I said, I think if you view her as a representation of false hope above and beyond all else, that makes everything about her and the story just make the most sense. Okay, I also have to say that the ending of this movie kind of does piss me off on a couple different levels. So first off, I don't like it when a character gets killed or seemingly gets killed only to come back. It really didn't seem to me like Sean Penn's Lockjaw should have survived that shotgun blast to the face. They sure made it seem like he was dead. And so then there's like kind of fake out. And I get why Anderson wanted the ending we got of him seemingly being accepted into the group only to immediately be executed by them. It's a very fitting end for his character, but the way we got there was kind of contrived. And I don't know. I think if he had just died out there in the desert and we maybe seen just a little bit more of that, I think that maybe would have been effective enough. And then the other aspect is literally the very ending, when Leo goes through hell and back to finally get his daughter back, gives her this letter from Beverly, and then she goes off to join the next revolution when, again, he kind of knows that this letter he's given her is false hope, and he just says, whatever, shrugs back, smokes his joint, gets on the phone, that's it. And this is going to get into some kind of social commentary on the different generations right now. So I was born in 1992, so I think that puts me at the younger end of the millennial gap, technically. My parents would be Gen X. And look, there's a very well-known kind of generational war going on between the baby boomers and the millennials / Gen Zers for all kinds of reasons. But interestingly enough, in this generational war, Gen X always seems to be totally left out of it. And the more time goes on, the more I personally get just kind of pissed off with Gen X in general also, in addition to the boomers. I don't think Gen X is anywhere near as bad as the boomers. I don't think Gen X did anywhere near the damage that the boomers did in terms of hoarding resources and things like that. But I think Gen X basically didn't do anything. They didn't do anything bad, but positively, what social issues did they fight for? What was their revolution? They elected the first black president. He didn't pan out that well. What else did Gen X really do? They really didn't do anything. And to me, I think of Gen X and I just think of the word whatever. I see Gen X is just laying back, smoking a joint, saying whatever as the world burns around them and not caring. And that's pretty much exactly the vibe I get from Leo at the end of this. The very end of this movie is like everything I don't like about Gen X personified almost in Leo. So I don't know, I might be just projecting like hell, but yeah, it is kind of a sour note for the movie to end on. And when we stretch that into the implications about P.T. Anderson himself and his personal politics and everything, yeah, it's easy to tell the next kids go fight the good fight when you barely even tried the first time. Those are my thoughts on One Battle After Another. A movie that I like and appreciate. I haven't really even talked about from just a filmmaking level. It is very well constructed. The chase scenes in the desert at the end are incredibly well done. I do appreciate what the movie's saying a lot more on the second viewing. I just still wish there was something a little bit more to it. I don't know, I just still feel like something is kind of missing from this. And it might be something missing from Paul Thomas Anderson himself. So those are my thoughts, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, stay sane, stay human.